Hi guys, Sharon here from School Corridor. We're supposed to be talking about the SPMDS, the performance management system that applies to all our public service staff at the school. That includes our admin staff, like your secretaries, your bursar, in some cases, if it's not a teacher, if it's a person employed via the Public Service Act, and we're talking about our general assistants and the foreman, okay? But I must confess, guys, when I came on here, I'm so disturbed by what is happening to our women folk. And one of my friends and colleagues just sent me an audio clip from one of the good old presenters, where a male presenter, and he made a call, to all men to start protecting women and not being these monsters that we are experiencing at this time. So I'm feeling a little bit unsettled, and I thought, I must go online and I know some of you guys are sitting there and waiting for me to talk about this, but I just had to put it out there. I just said out to Sasha, I don't know. I feel disturbed right in my soul that that we have these demonic forces out there just slaughtering our women and our children, and it's difficult to bear. So I'm following all the posts, and I'm following all the activities that are planned. And yes, I wore black with the rest today, just to show my support out there, and to show that as a woman, we need to start standing up, and particularly that we need to get our men to take up this whole crusade. It's about the women, but we need our men to do that, right? So yes, so that is sort of an introduction. I just thought, let me just get it off my chest before I do SPMDS. Yes, and I see quite a few people have joined. Hi, Michelle Pinto. Thanks for coming online. Always good to have the regulars here. And then Keith Nickert. Thanks, Keith, after scolding at me last week. And then, of course, Zalda, all the way from Ladysmith. Thanks, Zalda. I hope it's not a scold in Ladysmith as it is here with us. And then, of course, Alnora joined as well. Alnora, congratulations on your promotion. You're going to be a super deputy principal at that school. And of course, we're looking forward to seeing further advances in your career. Okay, so I think I've greeted everybody. And then Etienne Taxi de Villiers. Thanks, Taxi, for coming on again. Yes, we're going to talk about SPMDS, that is the Staff Performance Management and Development System that applies to our public service employees. Remember, the educators at your school, we as educators, we governed by the Educators Act, and then of course our public service employees, like our general assistants, our foremen, our admin staff, they are covered or governed by the Public Service Act of 1994. Okay, so today I just want to talk about the performance management system, and then perhaps I can just kick it off and say that it's called the Staff Performance Management and Development System. So it's not just about appraisal. It's not just about scoring people. The management system has a developmental component, just like IQMS. And that is an area, the development area, that many schools ignore, or they downplay that area, right? And I'm aware that many schools don't treat the SPMDS process, the performance management and development process, with the seriousness that it really deserves. Okay, so that is what we're going to talk about. So I'll touch on. I want to touch on the changes in this staff performance and development system for our public service staff, and then perhaps you can guide me as to what kind of detail I can add in this session. I think I'm still starting a bit down, really. Okay. Lamise Lotus, hi Lamise, thanks for joining. Hi to you. And Gillo's here. Gillo, guys, is our SLES head. She does the inclusive education, special needs. That is Gillo's speciality. So if you get hold of Gillo, you can ask all the questions about inclusive education. Thanks for coming on, guys. Yes. So let me start and just say the following: that there are now changes to the way we have to manage the performance management and development system of our public service staff, right? So there were a few key changes. I want to touch on that. And let me know if you're familiar with the previous system or whether this is completely new to you. Okay. Perhaps before I get to the key changes, let me just explain that for your public service staff, there should be the following documents on file, right? You must have a job description for each of your public service employees on file. Now, here in the Western Cape, we have generic job descriptions. So you may use those generic job descriptions and then tailor them to suit your own context. Okay, so the one document is that every single public service employee must have a job description on file, and each of those public service employees should have signed and dated those job descriptions. That's the one document. Then the second document that must be on file is what we call a performance agreement, right? Now, if you're in the Western Cape here, then you will know that document as Annexure A. And the performance agreement will be a document that will tell you, you and the employee, is a contact between you and the employee to say what work must be done for that particular cycle, for that annual cycle or that year cycle. Okay, I see I'm busy reconnecting here again, and so I can go into detail about that. And then the third document that must be on file is the personal development plan. Okay, so those are the three documents that you should have on file for every single public service employee, for each of your admin staff, for each of your ground staff members, be it general assistants or if the person is the foreman as well. Okay, Rushta says, hi Rushta, the principal of Sansu, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hi, beautiful lady, love this session. So glad you're enjoying the sessions. Yeah, so those three documents must be on file. Now, just this afternoon, while I was sort of thinking about the topic, one of my go-to people, I think I mentioned it, if you've been following the Facebook Live, I mentioned Nathan Cottle. So if I want to know anything about public service employee, the legislative framework that our public service employees operate within, then I will contact Nathan, and he keeps me updated on all the latest developments, all the new regulations and so forth. So I've got one of the foremen in Mitchell's Plain being one of my go-to people. So we were chatting about it, and we were chatting about schools not having those essential documents on file. So if you're a principal on here, then even if you're an educator or a supervisor of the public service employees at your school, then ensure, one, that there is a job description, right? Secondly, there must be what we call the Annexure A. That is the performance agreement, and that is the contract between you and the employee to say what work will be done for the year, because the employee will then be assessed on that information. Okay? And then the third document, as I've mentioned before, is the personal development plan. And if those documents are not on file, then one, if you don't have a job description in place, then that is irregular, right? Then whatever issue you have with your employee, if you don't have an official job description on file, guys, you are opening yourself up to possible labor disputes. Okay. The other important point that I can make is, if you don't have a job description, then how are you going to design how are you and the employee going to put together the performance agreement? Because the performance agreement has to be in line with the job description. So whatever key responsibility areas you have in the job description, those key responsibility areas will form the basis or the framework of your performance agreement. Okay? And then, so how are you going to assess the person if there's no job description? Okay? And then the personal development plan is if your employee requires development in a particular area, then that is the document where you'll stipulate what development needs the employee has in terms of the key result areas in your job description and, of course, in the performance agreement as well. Okay, does that make sense? Yes. Let me just scroll here and see. Okay, yes, Etienne has got a long thing. He says, I actually like the SPMDS more than the IQMS process. I agree with you. I like it's more structured, taxi. SPMDS regularly checks the performances and it also gives the employees chances to better themselves. I fully agree. Etienne, that system works if the schools have the system in place, if there are structures in place. And that is what we need to check on, whether there are job descriptions in place, whether there is a performance agreement in place. That was a consultative process between the supervisor and the employee, and whether the employee is held accountable and whether the supervisor is also held accountable. Okay? And then Zalda says, had a workshop on permits last Friday and also on different types of leave. Powerful information. Thank you, Chan. You are amazing. Thanks, Zalda. Okay. So, yes, the SPMDS system works better than IQMS. It's far more structured. It allows you to have a far more productive conversation with the employee because you have a job description with key responsibility areas, and those key responsibility areas will form the foundation or the basis of your performance agreement. And so when you have a discussion, this discussion will be more structured. It will be, it will be more focused rather than just speaking in general about certain things. Okay, so those are the three documents, like I mentioned. Now let me just run through what you should have in the job description. Okay, so in the job description, apologies, you must have the key responsibility areas, right? Okay, so those are your key job duties or your key functions. That must be in the job description. Then in the job description, and this is new, you must also record the competencies that the person requires to perform the job satisfactorily. And those competencies are called, the abbreviation is GAFs. GAFs stands for General Assessment Factors, and that covers all the skills, the competencies, and all the attributes that the person needs. Okay, so there are I think about 15. So you and your employee must then select the competencies that the person will require to perform the job. Okay, so let's say it's the foreman. So obviously the foreman is the leader, and the supervisor of the rest of the ground staff. So the foreman will, I suppose, have to identify competencies like leadership, like management, record management. The person will probably identify other attributes like interpersonal skills or teamwork. So from the whole group of competencies, you and your employee will have to make a selection of the gaps that will apply to that person's job, the skills, the competencies, and the attributes. Okay, so in your job description, your KRAs, your key result areas, or your key responsibilities that you have to perform. Then you make a selection of the gaps, and when the employee is happy with the way that job description has been constructed, then it must be signed off by you as the supervisor, and it must be signed off by the employee as well. Okay, and then you put that on file. Now, remember, your job description is almost a fixed document, because you have been employed by your education department, and you've been employed in that particular for that particular job. And so once you and your employee just finalized and consulted on certain issues, that job description goes on file. And so that doesn't have to change again, because unless the person moves from that job, the person either gets a promotion, then you have to do a, have to revise the job description, or there's a change in the way the job has been described, or the key result areas have changed. If there's a dramatic change, then obviously you have to adapt the job description. Okay, so that's the job description. Then the second, when you start with your performance management, your performance appraisal, there's a document called the performance agreement. Now that document, the performance agreement, which we call Annexure A still here in the Western Cape, that agreement is an annual document. It's just an agreement that lasts for one performance cycle. Now, our public service staff, they operate on the financial cycle. So their performance cycle starts in April every year, and it concludes in March in the following year. Not like IPMS. We start Jan to December, but our public service staff, they operate from 1 April right through to 31st of March of the following year. Okay, so your performance agreement is a contract for that year. And I'll just speak to the various components of that performance agreement now. Let me just see who else is on here. Cordelia joined us. Oh, hi, Cordelia. And Vaughan is here. Hi, Vaughan. Vaughan is all the way from Harmony, deputy principal. I think he's still a deputy principal there. And Eileen joined as well. You can throw in some questions, but I'll just roll on with some of the information that I wanted to give. So when we talk about the performance agreement, these are the features in there, right? One is that your performance agreement must contain all the key result areas. It must contain all those core responsibilities that you have in your job description. Okay, so that is the first thing that must be recorded in there. Now, like I said, those we call them KRAs. That's sort of the short form or the abbreviation of key result areas. So you record all your key result areas. And then those key result areas are broken down into outputs. In other words, if the key result area is cleaning, then the output you have to break down what are the expectations there in the output. So in the output, it will be, if it's cleaning, then it's cleaning of classrooms, cleaning of the administration block, cleaning of the ablution block, and so forth. Are you with me? And then that key result area must also have, there will be another section called activities. So in that section of your performance agreement, you will list the activities that the employee needs to perform to enable the employee to satisfy that key result area. So if it's cleaning, and the person must clean the classrooms, clean the ablution blocks, like I said, then in the activities, you'll have to stipulate and say, all the classrooms must be swept every single day. All the ablution blocks must be cleaned and sanitized every single day. Okay, you have to specify. You can't, for example, just say you must clean the classrooms. You could have 10 classrooms at your school. You could have 20 classrooms at your school. Now, this is where we have disputes often. So when you want to rate the employee at the end of the cycle, that's when the trouble starts. Now, you'll blame the person and, you'll say, Sharon, you didn't really clean the classrooms properly. Now, that's when the conflict starts. So the employee will challenge you, and rightly so. So what do you mean I didn't clean the classroom? I swept the classroom. I did this, I did that. Because your idea of sweeping is not my idea of sweeping. Your idea of clean is not the employee's idea of clean, perhaps. Perhaps when you say clean the classrooms, there's an expectation that the classrooms must be swept, the bins must be emptied. The detail in your head may be very different to the detail in the employee's head. So you have to specify under the activities. You need to sweep 10 classrooms every day in the B block, because another employee may have to sweep the other 10 classrooms in the A block or the C block. Okay, you need to be specific in the activities. I think I'm nagging a bit here, but those are usually the problem areas. Okay, let's take your secretary, your admin clerks. I see many of these performance agreements coming through. Now, in some of the performance agreements under, for example, under the output, you would have the telephone needs to be answered. Then in some of the under the activities, schools will specify and say the telephone needs to be answered after 3 rings or after 4 rings. The telephone always has to be manned. Those are the specifics that those schools will put in. Another school will just say, telephone must be answered. Now, let's assume I'm the admin person. I answer the telephone, but I answer perhaps sporadically. So I leave the office, I do my own stuff, the phone rings, we miss calls and so forth. And now you want to assess me at the end. You never address the issue with me, but at the end of the cycle, you want to now mark me down because I didn't answer the phone as in your head you imagine I was supposed to answer it. Are you with me? You need to give the detail under the activities. So, and I am another deputy. I've got a lot of deputies on the line today. Thanks for joining. A lot of women too. Thanks for coming online. And then, of course, Dawn. Dawn, you're running between Namibia and South Africa and Germany and all those places. Thanks for coming online. Yes. So ask me some questions. I still see I'm trying to connect. So I take it I'm still on. So I'm talking to the performance agreement at this point. I said, in the performance agreement, you're going to have all the key result areas. Then each key result area, you must specify the outputs. In other words, if you say that cleaning must be done, then the outputs will be cleaning of classrooms. And then another area that you must add is the activities. And there you must specify what kind of cleaning activity you want. And you must quantify the rooms, you must quantify the phone calls, you must quantify as well, because the more detail you provide, the better it is for your employee. So then you cut out all that unnecessary stress and all that unnecessary conflict that you have at the school, because you are specific in the performance agreement. And I can tell you now that often, because I deal with it, I'm speaking directly to an area that I'm responsible for. Often when I get in the performance, the scores, the performance measurement scores, then it won't be long before we are called out to come and resolve some issue, because people are not happy with the final score, and they will tell us when we go in there that there was no discussion during the year, and they only heard for the first time after an entire year had lapsed that those were the problems. So we'll speak to the reviews as well, but I'm just talking about the detail, okay? Leanne Bothma, you says, so glad for this information. Thanks, Leanne. Yeah, okay. So backtrack quickly again, performance agreement, all the key result areas must be in your performance agreement. We call it the Annexure A here in the Western Cape. Where will you find those key responsibility areas or the key result areas? it will be the same key result areas that you'll have in the job description. Okay, so there must be alignment between the job description and the performance agreement. Then I'm speaking about what are the features or what are the elements of your performance agreement. One is, like I said, the KRAs, and then each of those KRAs will be broken into outputs, which will be the general description of the particular KRA, and then of course you will have activities. Then there's another element attached to it where you have performance standards. In other words, that is how are you going to assess whether the person has done the job properly. Okay, can you see why I say it's important where possible that you quantify, that you put numbers there, that you add more descriptors so that the employee knows exactly what is required. You can't just say all the classrooms must be swept. And I think I mentioned that already. If I sweep 2 classrooms for the year, then I'll be happy that I've done my job. In the meanwhile, in your head, you may have wanted me to sweep 20 classrooms. Okay, so the performance standard will also specify exactly what the final outcome will be. And those are all your features of your performance agreement, right? Then part of your performance agreement, so those are all the key result areas with all those other elements. And then on your performance agreement, you must also add those general assessment factors. So you must add those competencies. So if it's your foreman, you must say, right, in order for you to perform your job satisfactorily or as expected, these are the competencies. Can we agree on the following competencies? And then you will list the competencies that that person will have to take into account as he or she performs his or her job. Okay? Let me use the foreman because that's easier. Let's say the foreman, because the foreman is in charge of a team, I would imagine that the foreman will have one of the gaps will be interpersonal relationships or interpersonal communication, right? So because that person will need to communicate with the staff, that person will have to relate to the staff, that person has to ensure that the rest of the staff members do their work. So you choose. Now don't choose the whole range of competencies. Let's say my challenge as a foreman is that I'm not assertive enough. I don't do what I'm supposed to do as the foreman. Then you can target in consultation. That's very important. In consultation with the employee, you can then agree that, look, this is the area that we need to add here. And if you need development in this area, then we will have to target that for further training or mentoring or coaching. Okay? So your performance agreement will then also have some of those competencies. And then those competencies will be assessed, globally when you assess the person. So you won't assess your employee first in terms of the KRAs. You'll assess the employee in terms of the KRAs and with an infusion of those competencies. I hope that makes sense. Okay, you can't say, okay, leadership, I'll give you a 1. No. Leadership will come through. We notice with the cleaning of the classrooms that Sharon, half the time Sharon is on a tea break, lunch break, whatever. So that means that the cleaning of the classrooms have suffered. So many teachers complained during this period now when we're doing the review and so forth. Okay? Yeah. Let me see how the other questions coming up. Rachel, Jean, Adam, Join, my cousin is here too. Thanks, Rachel, for coming, enjoying that. And CJ Lomba decided to join as well. Thank you, CJ. Jonathan says, Shannon, please speak to the performance bonus for the 2018-2019 period and the future thereof. Will it just be discontinued without anything in its place? Okay. Jonathan, a quick response. One is there is talk that the performance, the cash bonus will be discontinued. It will be phased out. Okay. That's the one, because remember the incentive of a cash bonus, that is not part of your job it's not a requirement. It's not. It's really discretionary. It's based on whether the employer wants to, wants to continue with the cash bonus or not. I thought, let me just clear that up quickly. So there is talk that it's going to be phased out. And then your first point is the performance bonus for the cycle that we just passed, right? So we're in the 2019-2020 cycle, but currently, I'm aware that the bonuses the salary progressions haven't been paid out and the cash bonuses haven't been paid out, but I was told that you can expect those salary progressions and the bonus to be paid out by the end of September. But please verify that information, give head office a call, and then just verify that information that I gave you. So there hasn't been scrapped for this year at all. Okay, there's just a delay, and we've heard that the payment will be made by the end of September. Hope that answers. Just give me a yes or a no. And then Fadia also joined. Hi, Fadia. Nice to have you here. And Karen haven't joined. Lovely. Okay. And Melissa. Thanks, Melissa. We are Tuesday buddies. Yeah, okay. So that's on the performance agreement. I'll recap after this again. Then the last document is that I want to just reference is the personal development plan. Okay, this is also one of the changes that took place. Remember, in the past, you had an individual performance plan. Now we talk about a personal development plan. And in the past, for those of you who have been involved with SPMDS, the employees would just have given you the training and needs, or the design, whatever training they wanted, they would have populated on the old Annexure B. Now, with the revised or the amendments to the performance management, it's still your Annexure B, but it's now called the Personal Development Plan. And all the training that is recorded on there must be aligned to the key result areas. So if your key result area is, for example, in admin, that you must assist the principal or manage the principal's diary and whatever, if that's a key result area and you need development in that area, then the training must speak to that particular KRA. It's no longer just listing how to do driving, plumbing, welding, computer lessons. Everything, all the training and development that the employee wants must align with the key result area. Okay, that's the key difference. And of course, if there's space for additional training where the person just wants to extend, then of course you can add that. But core is that you must identify the training and development needs in terms of the key result areas. Okay? Yes. Those are the three most important documents that I mentioned. Okay, let me see. I take it you guys can't see me because I'm just like reconnecting here. I don't know. I'm not even going to apologize anymore. I'm just rolling on. Okay. Yes. Oh, Jonathan, thanks. Good for that. Okay, can I move on to another change, and then we'll summarize at the end. The other change before, for those of you who have been involved in SPMDS, when you did the performance management for the public service staff, we had a 5-point rating system. Now we have a 4-point rating system. Okay. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of 1 to 5. And I just want to run through that rating scale quickly. The language is also completely different. Okay, so we have a 4-point rating scale, and we now speak about the key word or the base word is effective. Okay, so you're either not effective, you are partially effective, or you are fully effective. And if you exceed the expectations of the job, if the employee exceeds the expectations of the job standards, then that person will be seen as highly effective. So that is the new language of the performance management system. Okay, so let me just run through the 4-point rating scale quickly. So if the person scores a 1 per key result area. If the person performs a 1 in that one area, that means the person is not effective and the person would have achieved under 66% for that KRA. Okay? If you are partially effective, then for a particular KRA, the person will be scored a 2, which means the employee has satisfied some of the key job requirements, but hasn't fully satisfied all the job standards as specified in the job description. Then that particular employee will score a 2. And if you get a 3, then it means that you have satisfied all the job expectations. You have achieved the standard that is expected for someone who occupies that particular job. Okay, then you will get a rating between 100 and 119%. I'll speak more to this. If the person gets a 4, right, an overall 4, that means the person scored a 4 in every single KRA, then that particular employee will be seen as being highly effective. Like I mentioned just prior to this, that person will then get be seen as having satisfied all the job requirements and having gone beyond what has been expected. Okay, so the expected rating is the 3. Now that's important because if, for example, you have 4 KRAs and somebody is underperforming in one KRA, then it means you're going to score that person either a 1 or a 2, because the 3 is when you are fully effective, right? So as soon as the person has scored a 1 or a 2 and doesn't get a 4 in one of those KRAs, the person will get an overall score of under 3, a 3 score. Are you with me? So that person would not have, overall, that person would not have satisfied all the job requirements. And so the employee will be seen as poor performing. And as soon as the employee is assessed as poor performing, then you as the supervisor must have a development or a support plan in place. Okay, so theoretically, your employee should score a 3 for every single KRA to get an overall 3 and then be regarded as doing the job as required. Okay, if you go through it, you'll see that if you score somebody a 4 in one particular KRA and 3s, then you'll get 3 point something. Okay, that means the person is fully effective, but that decimal in the new determination, in the new regulation, there are no decimals. In other words, there's no rounding off. Right? So if you're 3.2, 3.3, 3.5, whatever, the decimal falls away and it will just remain a 3. So in the past, people would score the employees and then you would get, say, 3.7, 3.8, and then people would round it off and make it a 4. Now, the new regulation doesn't allow for that rounding off. And so that is a key difference. Okay? We saw that in the previous cycle where many people in the past, when you scored according to that 5-point rating scale, then you could still round off at that time and people would score 4s and they would qualify, they would be in line to be nominated for the cash bonus, or they would score a 5. But now with a 4-point rating system and no decimals allowed, the employee must score a minimum of a 3 for each KRA. As soon as there's under a 3 score, even in one KRA, that means that area that person is not performing in that area, and so you need to have a support plan in place. Okay? Let me hear. Hi, Booty. Lovely to have you here again. Okay, so does that make sense? Just say yes or no. Where are we now? So yes, that is the rating scale that I wanted to speak about. Is there anything else that I wanted to speak about now? There's something I wanted to say about the rating scale, but it just slipped me completely. Yeah. Okay. Ask me some questions while I try to gather my thoughts. Like I told you when I started out, I'm a little bit unsettled because of all this stuff happening to our women and our children, and you know how it is. Just disturbs your spirit. So I'm slightly sort of feeling unsettled, and I think, yeah, I'm not blaming that. I'm just saying that, I'm human. So, yeah. Is there anything that you want to ask me? Besides Jonathan that asked, Lilani, says, how do you work out the percentage, the formula for 4 for the rating scale? Lilani, I hope I'm understanding you correctly. There's a calculator too. There's a calculator that we attach for you to use. So that calculation comes with that regulation. That's sort of a short answer. So yeah, maybe I should just go into a little bit more detail at another point. I'm just trying to see how do you work out the percentage. Remember all your yes, thank you, Lilani. You just actually triggered now. I spoke about the rating scale, but now let me talk about the weighting of your KRAs, because perhaps this will help you, Lilani. Your weighting per KRA the total weighting you must have 100%, overall 100%. So all the KRAs together must add up to 100%, right? Then the minimum weighting that you can give a KRA is 10%. And the highest weighting that you can give a KRA is 30%. So you will determine which of those KRAs have greater importance, which one should carry more weight than another KRA. And so you will then give the ones that are critical, the ones that are very important, you'll probably give it a weighting of 30% of that 100%. Okay? And then for the ones that are not so important, I suppose you'll go for 10%. So if you work on that weighting, where you can only give not less than 10% and not more than 30%, you'll find that you probably have only about 4 KRAs. Okay? So let's assume there are 3 KRAs that are critical to that job, and you give it a weighting of 30%. Then it means there will be 1 that will be 10%. Or you may allocate an equal weighting to all the KRAs and say, right, we're going to make each KRA, give it a weighting of 20%. Then you can have 5 KRAs. But you have to look at which one is more critical. Let's take a foreman. The foreman has a managerial role, and the foreman is required to assist the general assistants, right? So the foreman has a supervisory role. Now you have to determine what percentage are you going to give to that supervisory role. Now let's say you decide 20% because you want the person to ensure that the whole team develops and that the whole team is working very well and everybody's effective and everybody's efficient and so forth. Then if you give the supervisory role 20%, then obviously for cleaning, you're going to make it less, because the foreman's job is to assist the general assistants, but also oversee the cleaning. So if your general assistant has a weighting of 30%, then I suppose it makes sense to give the foreman a weighting of, say, 20%. Okay, can't make it 10% because I think 10% is so negligible. But there could be another area where you want to give 10%. So when you calculate the percentage, then you'll take, let's say, KRA 1, you score the person a 3, and the weighting of that KRA is 30%, then you'll say 3 times 0.3, if we're doing the maths here, will give you a score of 0.9. Okay, and then of course the calculator will make you will add up all the rest for you. Okay, but if you do the maths, it's just 3 times 0.3, it will give you 0.9. Lonnie, I hope that helps at this point. Okay. Yes. Right. Let's see. Hi there, Roxana. Lovely to have you here as well. I missed you when I'm scrolling up again, just to make sure that I haven't missed anybody. Okay, so ask me a question or two. Otherwise, I think the session is going to end soon. Okay, so any questions? Keith, no questions today. You sorted out all your inventories and your microscopes that you wrote off last week. Right. Rushta, is there anything I should mention? Or Michelle, just guide me quickly. Saras is here. Hello, Saras. Lovely to have you here. One of my Facebook buddies that I was to meet one day. And then, let's see, Denver. Hi, Denver. Denver is the principal of Glenbridge in Deep River. For those of us in the Western Cape, Deep River is one of our southern suburbs areas. Okay, Denver. Hi, Sharon. Every year we complete training needs for our public service staff. When the district develops the training needs for the district, please make these training opportunities available to all schools. We unfortunately do not get this information. Yes, thank you, Denver, for the question. Okay, I can just speak for a Metro South because I'm connected to Metro South. We have what we call, Denver, we get your training needs, we send out that training needs form, and then we collect all the training needs, and of course we have a training plan for the district. So we roll out training. Currently, we've rolled out the safety and security, and we doubled up on that safety and security training because of the demand from our schools. And my admin clerk who does the work skills, she sends out that training to every single school, Denver, at your school, and then you must indicate 2 of your employees would like to do it. Okay, so that mail does go out. We've also recently completed the ethics and etiquette training, and we also doubled up on that because of the need. So every single school in South will get a mail from Karen, your bad, and she will indicate the training we have, and then you have to respond. So just check your mail, because we don't choose who comes. You guys have to then indicate to us who wants the training. Okay, but if there is a particular issue, then give me a shout. Phone me, and then we can speak about it. But the training is rolled out according to that plan. That's one of my mandates, and I'm a little bit sticky in terms of making sure that it happens. So currently, I can tell you it is happening in South. Landy joined as well, Miss Diva. Okay, and Keith says, just busy trying to glean as much as I can for a possible new role. Yes, Keith, listen, principal is your next role, please. So I'm glad you're on here. And then while you think of other, Denver, just let me know if I've answered your question. You asked about the training. Yes, the training goes out. I can only speak for Metro South because I'm directly connected to that district. And then we are oversubscribed, that I can tell you, in terms of the training that we roll out. But that being one of the competencies that I'm appraised against, let me assure you that it does happen. Okay. And then let's see. Okay. Landy says, thank you for the session. Yeah. So if there are no further questions, because we can tackle it in more detail, but I thought, let me just cover the 3 main documents that you need on file. Because if you're in South, I'm sending out the mail soon, because I am not sure if all the schools have those documents on file. So I'm going to send out some information just to, ask people, do you have it on file? If you don't have it on file, can you please just ensure that you are compliant and that you don't make yourself guilty of a labor irregularity, because that is the case. If your employees don't have their job descriptions on file, that's a serious irregularity. They must have a performance agreement, and then we're going into mid-reviews now because it's the end of the first 6 months. So by the end of this term, you should have sat with each of your employees and you should engage them in terms of their performance agreement. But I thought I'll leave that for the second session. But just a quick heads up that you need to have speak to them and now review the work, because you cannot skip that step and then just give us a final score in March, because that is when the disputes start, when people start lodging grievances and complaints to our office, especially in the district that I'm working in. So yeah, so that's the one thing. The job description must be on file, signed off and dated by your employee and the supervisor. Secondly, there must be a performance agreement on file, signed and dated by you and your employee. And then there must be a personal development plan that must be signed and dated on file. And you will have another document by the end of this term called the mid-year review, which is called the Annexure C1. And on that form, you also have all the KRAs, because you are now going to have a conversation with your employee about his or her performance in those various areas. And that meeting will be minuted, and that minute will also be on record. Okay, so that is just some extra detail. Yeah, and then of course, Michelle says, Sharon, please also send it to me. Michelle, you still have access to the online people management folder that I have. I do run an online folder for the schools in my district, and so those forms are available. There's a link, and so schools can just go into it and download it. But I'll do that, Michelle. And then Maureen, Jacob's joined from Paul. Maureen, I always get people joining there. And thanks for coming. Keith says, so outsourcing work should only happen if KRAs aren't covered in the job description. Keith, can you just explain to me what you mean by outsourcing? Remember, the KRAs will be the key responsibilities, those areas, the duties, the key duties and responsibilities that would have been, that's part of the job advert as well. Remember, all job adverts are drawn from the job description. So the KRAs will cover everything. You must unpack those KRAs. And then maybe I should run a session and just look at one particular, I don't know if you guys will like it, just indicate to me. I can run through, for example, the admin clerk's job description as one of the sessions, and then run through each of the KRAs, and then talk about what you could possibly have in there. So your KRAs there, then remember I said then you have outputs. The output will say exactly what should be done, and then the activities give you the detail about the frequency of the activity, the devil is in the detail under activities. So Keith, I think I may be misunderstanding your comment here. So if you're outsourcing, yeah, I'm thinking wildly now. If you're outsourcing in terms of, say, welding, let's say welding won't be in the job description. There will be, for the general assistants, your ground staff, you'll have minor maintenance, right? So minor maintenance will refer to fixing locks, doing sort of basic plumbing if the person has the skills and you have provided the training. But if you have some serious welding or some serious plumbing, then you're going to have to outsource that, because that is not one of the key requirements in the job descriptions of our general assistants nor our foreman. So if that is what you're asking me, then outsourcing is on the cards, right? But if it's minor maintenance, minor repair work, that is covered in the general assistance and in the foreman's job description. Okay? Yeah. Like, oh my word, yes. I didn't see your comment. I just saw it without pushing up. Hi, Janita. Thanks for coming. Hello, Sharon. Go well. Thank you, my love. Thank you for that comment. Okay. So, yes. So that's the end of the session. The job description, performance agreement, like we said, and then of course you have your personal development plan. Those must all be on file, like I said. There must be a lot of detail. You must check the rating scale. It's 1 to 4. You'll have to give a weighting to each of those KRAs, and you must look at how important the KRAs are. So it must be a random decision. And my recommendation is always, don't try to break it down and make 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, because that's useless. That's a waste of time. that defeats the whole purpose, right? Give it a reasonable weighting. I would say a reasonable weighting, in my view, is 20 or 30. And then 10 is really negligible. Because even if you score the person a 4, where there's a weighting of 10%, let's say I'm brilliant in that area, the highest I can get 4 in that area, then it's 4 times 0.1. With me? It's not worth it. So think carefully about that when you have the discussion. So yes, I think I'm going to go around in circles. That's so typical of me. So I'm going to end the session, and then maybe the last point I wanted to mention, somebody, Shamima, one of my colleagues, who's with me at the moment, she said, Shannon, did you stop with the principal's job description? And I thought I didn't clear that up. I said, no, I didn't stop. But maybe I need to mention this at the beginning of the session, that I'm just doing some deep diving into certain areas, right? So I'm deep diving into SPMDS, and in the principal's job description is that the principal must manage the staff, the personnel. So the personnel includes your educator staff and your public service staff, and in your deputy principal the same. So I'm just doing some deep diving into some of those, key responsibility areas of your principal. And maybe, yeah, I've just said it now. So perhaps I should just repeat that. It's not isolated. It's just delving a bit deeper into certain areas. Okay, so on that note, guys, listen, value the woman in your life. Let's see how we can change this terrible culture that we have, and especially our men. There's a big appeal. This fight should be driven by our men as well. In fact, my sense is that the men's voices must become louder, and the men out there must help us drive this whole campaign to stop this demonic slaughtering of our women. Okay, so yes, so that's a sad situation in South Africa. I was listening to Good Up this morning. No, not Good Up. I think I was listening to some radio station, and they said that now the rate is that 1 in every 3 women are either raped or murdered. Now that is a horrific statistic, and so it's sort of just just sitting and mulling over my system all the time. But thanks for being in the house. I enjoy you guys very much. I hope you learned something. And then next week, I think I'll pick up and go into a little bit more detail about SPMDS. So that is sort of a framework. And I think for next week, I'll focus on the actual job description and perhaps do the mid-review. And then Lilani, I think I'll touch on how we do the calculation as well in greater detail. Just help me keep myself on track. So on that note, have a super Tuesday evening. Thanks for being around. School corridors here to help us all grow together. And then, of course, to inspire each other and to empower one another. Go well. Cheerio.